In today's media criticism, which is actually probably my 800th media criticism, we'll be talking about CNN's Brian Stelter, who is shocked to discover that conservatives criticize Joe Biden. I kid you not, that's it. Brian Stelter dedicates a segment on his show this morning talking about how crazy it is that right-wing talk radio just rags on Biden all the time. And could you imagine some kind of media company that exists just to go after a politician? Oh, heavens. I couldn't imagine such a thing. Brian, do you know anybody who does that? Is there anybody that comes to mind that literally dedicates their entire network to just ragging on a politician? I'm going to give you a second. Yeah, you get it. This is ridiculous. Dude, you are literally what you're complaining about. Total lack of self-awareness, but I got to admit, it's funny, and now we can talk about it. Let me tell you something. I rag on Democrats quite a bit. I rag on Republicans much less often, but I do rag on Republicans. I have very few good things to say about them, but for the most part, the problems I see are due to the fact that Democrats are clashing with Trump, and the media is typically on the sides of the Democrats for the most part, except for some conservative outlets and some fair and balanced outlets. I don't mean Fox News. I mean there are literally some centrist outlets that are okay. I really like The Hill, the Rising show with Crystal and Sagar. It's a great show. Progressive, conservative. They bring a balance to it. Brian, you, on the other hand, are just another one of these talk radio shows, but you have a thin veneer of journalism. You say, can you believe what Fox News is doing today? Brian, your show is the Fox News review channel. That's what you do. Now, I get it. I get the shtick. Here's the thing. Let me tell you what. You see, I criticize the media as a whole. I give praise to some journalists and some news outlets, and I use many different news outlets as sources. So I recognize that many of them often do a good job. I'm critical of the Democratic operative types, like people like Brian Stelter, who pretend to be something they're not and are infecting the industry with this garbage reality TV nonsense in a desperate attempt to make cash. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. Well, let's read, and we'll read some of the criticism too. From Breitbart, CNN Stelter, offensive and otherworldly for right-wing radio hosts to question Biden's health. You know why? Brian Stelter says, look, there's a video of Joe Biden riding a bicycle. Okay. Seriously? So the crux of Brian's segment is that he shows a bunch of clips from like Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro. And one of my favorite things about this is when he shows the Ben Shapiro clip, he plays it, so it's radio or podcast, and Ben Shapiro's like, Joe Biden is literally falling apart. He is falling apart, people. And then Brian Stelter's like, this hate and vitriol. And I'm like, wait, hold on. That's all Ben said? Ben Shapiro said that Joe Biden was falling apart. Okay, well, he is. I mean, the dude has gaffes in his own commercials. That's not mean. But the other, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Mark Levin or whatever. He said that he thinks I can't remember which commentator it was, that Joe Biden's not actually in his basement. He's in an assisted care facility or something. Is actually really, really funny. Listen, you want to criticize a politician? I don't care. You want to only criticize one politician? I really don't care. Just be upfront about it, right? I talk about all the time where it's like, I really do just rag on Democrats like all the time. And I have like some criticisms for Trump, but I'm like, look, I know where my criticisms lie. Mostly with the overt SJW, weird intersectional cultist members and fake news media like CNN's Brian Stelter and Oliver Darcy. It's their whole bit is to be like, Fox News is so bad. Can you believe what they're talking about now? Wow. They call it an alternate reality. That's his bit. I guess technically he's telling the truth. When Brian doesn't recognize that he literally does the same thing, it would seem like alternate reality. Here we go. Stelter said, let's go on a trip together to a totally alternative universe. You never hear what's happening there unless you tune into right-wing talk radio. But you need to know what they're saying because the most popular, most powerful talkers in the country have trained their sights on Joe Biden. Oh, they did. What you are about to hear them say is mind-boggling. Look, whether you like Biden or not, this stuff is offensive and otherworldly. You know what, man? Joe Rogan recently had on his show, might I add, the most popular podcast in the world, a segment in which he said Joe Biden is mentally compromised. I completely agree with the guy. And Joe Biden's pretty far Joe Rogan. Joe Biden is mentally compromised. Joe Rogan is correct, but Joe Rogan's a bit of a lefty. What's that? What's that, Brian? You can't use Joe Rogan because he is pro-UBI and is rather left in a ton of issues? Oh, no. What, you can't use other podcasters who are not right-wing talk radio? It's so stupid, in my opinion, to play this game. This is the problem I have with CNN. Look at this. Look at this story from last week. Brian Stelter ridiculed for claiming right-wing media tempest is behind push for Biden not to debate Donald Trump. Suggestion Biden should not debate came in CNN, New York Times. Are you kidding me, Brian? It was your own network that said this. Advisors say Joe Biden should not debate Donald Trump. Here's the story. They say CNN media pundit Brian Stelter raised eyebrows on Monday night after he said that mostly right-wing media is behind the growing push for Joe Biden not to debate President Trump, despite high-profile calls from the New York Times and even CNN personalities for the former vice president to skip the events. You want to know what's an alternate reality? CNN. We have riots going on in this country for 73 nights. How many nights of coverage have you dedicated to this, Brian? Now, look, I do 6 segments individually and then a 2-hour live show with friends. So it ultimately comes out to like 4 hours of content across the board. We rag on Joe Biden. Now, when it comes to the IRL podcast, Adam likes Trump. I'm more critical of Trump, but I like Trump better than Joe Biden. So it's kind of like a more middle ground leaning closer to Trump. Definitely critical of Joe Biden. We've ragged on Republicans in the past, mostly rag on. Actually, we don't talk too much about the rank and file politicians, but we try to be eclectic. We try to be more than just whatever it is Brian Stelter is doing. Yeah, we'll talk about the riots. We'll talk about protests in favor of police. We'll talk about whatever the big news story of the day is. Brian Stelter, on the other hand, watches the tidbits from Fox, ignores the fact that for the most part, Fox does a good job of reporting. Oh, I said it. I said the naughty words. All of a sudden, all the leftist ears exploded. How could Tim say this? It's true. Fox, during the day, has excellent reporters. I mean, Brett Baer is fantastic. Bill Hemmer does a great job. There are other people who do reporting for Fox News, and they have field reporters like Trey Yingst, who's currently on the ground in Beirut. Yeah, sorry, man. They do legit reporting. It's great. Oh, but they have pundits. They have political pundits, and they're conservatives. Okay. There are also liberal outlets. You're going to talk about MSNBC's alternate reality where they ragged on Trump and Russiagate for years? Oh, no, because you're part of that. This is the problem I have with CNN. They act like they're above and separate from all of these things. But we're really a news organization. I tell you what, Brian Stelter literally said that. Check this out. Daniel Chayton tweeted, "For many, this will seem like a very tone-deaf comment from Brian Stelter, as they view cable news networks like CNN as being an extension of the Democratic Party with nothing but negative coverage of Trump and his administration." Yes, quite literally. So Brian says, "I trust that you and all your followers know the difference between news outlets, which employ reporters to go gather news, and talk radio hosts who do not. But Brian, you were ragging on Fox News and right-wing media just a week ago for pushing the narrative that your network was pushing. So sure, people do know the difference, and you do not fall into the camp of news outlet. Sorry. CNN, I tell you what, you know what the CNN challenge is? The CNN challenge. You turn on your cable TV or whatever, you put on Fox News, see what they're talking about. You write it down. Then you switch to CNN and see what they're talking about. And 9 times out of 10, CNN is talking about Trump. Trump is bad and Trump is so bad. I turn on Fox News and they're like, today riots erupted in Iran. And I'm like, whoa, I changed the channel. CNN. But Trump, Trump said, I'm like, okay. The next day I turn on CNN. Weather patterns coming in. We're going to see major storms. And I'm like, weather's kind of boring, but hey, at least they're covering the potential storm coming in. Turn on CNN. What are they talking about? Donald Trump. It's on my Instagram. Go to Instagram.com/Timcast, scroll down, and you will see the videos I've made where I'm like switching back and forth. Yeah, Fox News has their pundit guys, but during the day, they talk about news. CNN has panel after panel after panel every single day complaining about the orange man. Why? Because the guy running CNN is a reality TV dude, Jeff Zucker, who worked with Trump. So the only thing he knows is, hey man, I can milk Trump's persona for money. That's what your network is. To pretend otherwise is patently absurd. But if you embrace it, I have no complaint. If Brian Stelter came out and said, welcome to the Orange Man Bad Network, I'm Brian Stelter, here to complain about the Orange Man again, I'd be like, rad, right on. We know what your network's all about, right? No, that's not what he does. He says, excuse me, actually, we're a news outlet, okay? We're very different from talk radio. No, Brian, you're not. You are just the channel people tune into when they want to vent about something they're mad about, and they want to blame Trump because they're angry and they don't know why. That's really what it is. I get angry about things. I get angry about policy. I get angry that Republicans and Democrats teamed up to block Trump from withdrawing troops from the Middle East. I think that's really stupid. And I'll give credit to the 3 Democrats and the 8 Republicans who stood up and said, we're with you on this one. It's so weird. It's so weird, isn't it? Yeah, I'll tell you what. CNN is the establishment elitist network, and they hate Trump because Trump is a populist. I got disputes with Trump's demeanor, his lack of professionalism, and some of his policies that are conservative, but I certainly like him way more than crony garbage CNN and Joe Biden. So I can sit here and I can say, I don't like Trump. Probably have to vote for him, and that's why. And CNN can lie to you. I'll tell you straight up, here's why I don't like Democrats. Republicans are beholden to Trump right now for the most part, so they're kind of shutting up and doing nothing. Okay, I can accept that, I guess. I don't like them. I don't like their policies for the most part. There's a small handful of politicians I really like. Most of them tend to be Republicans because they're principled and libertarian. Small handful of Democrats that have spoken up. It's only been few and far between. And the Democrats are going down this weird socialist path I can't follow. So I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, I think there's going to be a new Republican Party. It's going to be populist right with a lot of moderates, liberals, and old conservatives teaming up to stand up for this country. And the establishment crony lunatics like Brian Stelter are going to keep pretending like Joe Biden's the perfect image of mental health, and he's not. So if you want to rag on Joe Biden, do it. You want to rag on Trump? Of course, do it. You want to pretend like you're news? Spare me, dude. No, you're not. You're not. You're playing the same game as everybody else, and we all know it. I got one more segment coming up for you in a few minutes. Stick around, and I will see you all shortly.